And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Shaken, Not Heard. I am your host, Elliot Serrano, now being joined by my co-host, Dave Pino. Talk about getting things in under the wire. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I have learned not to send you the link too far in advance because then you won't find it. So I will do that from now on. I will do it day of, only day of.
Yes.
Today, as you saw in the opening credits, we are going to be joined by some guests to talk about SKYFALL, the third of the Daniel Craig 007 films, considered by many the best. Anyway, that's one I would think is considered the best of the Daniel Craig films. And for those who have never watched Shaken Not Heard before, this is, of course, a James Bond fan cast where Dave and I, both Bond fans of varying degrees of knowledge. I'm the kind of like the casual fan. Dave is the uber fan. And we like to talk. We've been talking about the movies from the very beginning, starting with Dr. No, all the way through. We will be ending on No Time to Die, which we did review. So if you do want to see our take on No Time to Die, just check out our archives. You can find those both on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube page. Depending on where you're watching us now, I know we are on several channels. So thank you so much if you're joining us here on Instagram. I'm sorry, not on Instagram, on Facebook.com/Shaken Not Heard. We do have an Instagram page, but we're not streaming on that yet. Thank you so much for joining us on Twitch as well as on YouTube. So thank you if you are joining us on any of these channels. Susan, thanks for being with us. Lehman, thank you for being on board and joining us for another conversation. So, talking about not Casino Royale, talking about SKYFALL, we have hold on a second here. I'm going through it. My buttons here do not want to cooperate with me today. The question first, Dave, when it comes to SKYFALL, is it faithful to the book?
There's no SKYFALL book.
See, last time I made the mistake when it was Quantum of Solace, and I didn't ask about there's no Quantum of Solace book, but then you're like, but wait, there is a Quantum of Solace
story
reference, a short story.
Yeah.
So there was like no SKYFALL short story, no any reference to SKYFALL anywhere.
Well, SKYFALL is the first and only one-word title in the series that's not a Fleming creation, because you had Goldfinger, Thunderball, Moonraker, Octopussy, all Fleming. GoldenEye was not a book title, but that's the name of Fleming's estate. This was kind of, they went out sort of on a limb here and did and I think it's cool. It sounds like it could have been a Fleming title. It has that sort of evocative sound to it. I will say I was reading up recently about the writing of the story, and I never really made the connection, but thinking about it now, it makes sense. The whole beginning of the movie, where Bond is presumed dead, and then he's living this life. What country? I'm lost. What country he's supposed to be in after the post credits, where he's like on an island and drinking and getting drunk all the time, and then he has to kind of prove himself and work his way back into the Secret Service. Very, very much the Man with the Golden Gun, Fleming's Man with the Golden Gun, where Bond is. That takes place after You Only Live Twice, where he's still kind of reeling from Tracy's death, and he's not quite in top form, and M sends him on basically what amounts to like a suicide mission to go after Scaramanga in the book, who actually has a lot of parallels to the Silva character Javier Bardem's character in this movie. So I never really thought about that. But even though it's not taking a title or really specific plot ideas from anything Fleming created, that early part of the movie is clearly Fleming inspired. Now that I'm thinking about it, and now that I read about it, I was reading an interview with Purvis and Wade, who did the script to this one. So there's a little bit of Fleming inspiration for sure in this movie. Hey, you're muted. You're muted. There you go.
Oh goodness. Am I not pixelated too? I think my signal here is wavering too. Anyway, a couple elements here that seem the tad recycled. Bond going up against what a previous agent from MI6. We saw that in GoldenEye, and yet again, more national organizations which seem to have many tendrils that end up not being so much as in a Quantum of Solace. But anywho, going into our conversation here, before we get too far into it, let us bring on our guests who will be joining us and talking about my goodness, I'm telling you, I am off today big time, talking about Skyfall first, returning yet again from the vortex. I hope his signal from the TARDIS is stronger this time. He is a friend of the show, podcast host in his own right. You can listen to him talk about Star Trek on Trek to Trek, and he is part of a crew that ranked all 26 Bond films in the Ultimate Bond cast. Welcome back to Bob Mish. How you doing, Bob?
Hi. To be talking Skyfall after Quantum of Solace. Yeah.
Excellent. Wait, did I just do that, or did he do that? We'll see how things work out. And then our newest guest, never been on the show before, but not coincidentally, I've known this gentleman for quite some time, and I had the pleasure of actually meeting him in person for the first time at the Chicago press screening of Skyfall. He's a writer, sports writer, local author of Blackhawks and Illustrated History, as well as 100 Things that every Blackhawks fan should do and know. Tab Banford. How you doing, Tab?
Oh, I'm terrific. Good to see you, gentlemen.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. All right. So we're all on board. I know Bob's got to be somewhere too. So we'll jump right into things. And the first question that I always ask is, what you drinking, fellas? I'll start with you, Dave.
So I decided for this particular movie, I found a drink in the Shaken book called the Moneypenny, since this is the film that reintroduces us to Miss Moneypenny. And it is 1 1/4 ounce of gin, 3/4 ounce of lime juice, a 1/2 ounce of simple syrup, 1/2 ounce of rose liqueur, a 1/2 ounce of Coke Americano, shaken in ice, served over a highball glass with crushed ice, along with a long strip of cucumber and mint as a garnish. It's very tasty, very floral tasting. It fits her character very well.
Ooh, it sounds good too.
That sounds delicious.
It is.
Yeah, that sounds great.
How about you, Bob? Are you imbibing anything this evening?
No, my my medical condition means I can't really drink, so I'm sticking to the old ginger ale, the Skyfall of alcohol. That came out terrible. Ginger ale.
Nothing wrong with that. And you, Tab.
I kept it in Chicago. I am doing a nice glass of Cobalt single barrel rye whiskey. There's what the bottle looks like, a Chicago favorite. And here's the glass. Salute.
There you go. Koval, great stuff. I've had those whiskeys Can't go wrong. I'm like Bob, am minding a few things and just having a Coke, Diet Coke. So keeping it simple. I'm not gonna do like Dave, who drank on an empty stomach one time and got a tad happy, really happy by the end of the show. Which, by the way, no one has yet to identify which episode that was, which concerns me.
Yeah. You got that
Anyway, no. Hey, what are you gonna do? So, Skyfall was released in 2012, starring Daniel Craig, Judi Dench, Javier Bardem, Naomi Harris, Berenice Marlowe, and Ralph Fiennes. The screenplay by Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, and John Logan, and directed by Oscar-winning director Sam Mendes. I think he'd done American Beauty just a couple years before. Surprised he did not sneak his wife in there somewhere. That I guess well, for those who know, if you know, you know. But this one was came right off of Quantum of Solace. I do believe. Well, by then the writer's strike was definitely done. We had a full production going. I think Daniel Craig and crew had kind of bounced back. They were even aware of how Quantum of Solace was being received. So they wanted to go in and pretty much shake off the blues from that one and give fans something big. This would also be the 50th anniversary of Bond. So this was a 50th anniversary film. Hence all the nice little callbacks to Bond things throughout the history of the franchise. So let me go. I'm going to go counterclockwise this time. If assuming that we've all watched Skyfall recently, what was your take on the film this time as opposed to the first time you saw it? I'll start with you, Tab.
This time the first time I saw it, I was with my dad sitting next to you, and I think you and I kind of looked at each other before it started, and we're like, let's see where this goes. And afterward, I think we were pretty thrilled with where it went, especially after Quantum of Solace. I actually watched it again, I will say, for the sake of my present employer this weekend, not this afternoon. And it still holds up. And I think it's what I appreciate about it is there's so many different roads that it takes you down. And my initial thought when I walked out of the theater with you, God, almost 10 years ago, that's crazy to think now, is it kind of felt like that would be maybe like the capstone. Like that could have been it. Like in Adele's song, "This Is the End" is one of the lyrics. And you kind of felt like, well, there goes Judi Dench. He goes home. Is this, could this be like the capper on the thing? And you watch it today, and it feels like it takes his character in the direction that it ultimately ended with No Time to Die. It was I love just the way that there's a contrast between a vulnerability and like an accepting of his humanity, but also just a callous, still has 0 F's to give. Let's just do the thing. So I loved how the character evolved in this movie. I thought Javier Bardem was absolutely incredible. One of my favorite roles that he's ever done. And Adele's song, I always go back to that. That's I've done my power rankings of Bond songs, and I've had that consistently in the top 3 since that movie came out. And I'm sorry, Billie Eilish, you did not knock Skyfall out of the top 3. So no, I just think that there were a lot of complexities, and it really did a nice job of, with the 50th anniversary, there were so many little nuances within what was being done on the screen, and little things like the flipping of the license plates back to the original that were just really solid. Like, if you got it, you got it. 50th anniversary tips of the cap. That just, it felt like it was bringing the character full circle. And for those reasons, I have it as one of my favorite Bonds of all time.
Bob.
I got a lot of praise for Skyfall. Yeah, I loved it when it came out. I agree. I just watched it yesterday, and I think it holds up great. There's a lot of great to it, which you don't often get in a Bond film, to this degree. But it works. Like they make. Sometimes I feel like they try for layers, and it them off. Like World Is Not Enough, where you also focus on M, but this focus works better. And as you said, you had a 00 gone bad with GoldenEye, and do it better here. I have to say, by far my favorite Daniel Craig, and I know that's up against it with Casino Royale, but the reason is because this gives me more of the Bond flavor I want out of a Bond movie. It got Q and Moneypenny back. You get a little bit more humor. Bond feels a little more human. I feel like a natural progression of the character we saw restarted in Casino Royale. The music score was by Thomas Newman, very kind of electronic, very ethereal, but still enough John isms in there. You don't want it maybe every movie, but Wright's a perfect fit. I actually loved his score to anyone who remembers The Man with Shoe, and I always thought this guy should do a Bond movie, and here we are 30 years later, and he does. But yeah, what I love about it is a lot of it's a great journey for Bond, a great journey for M. The emotional journey is on our other podcast is very well thought out, even if you can the plot a bit, but it's weird. I can nit GoldenEye all day long and it bugs me, but all the plot issues with this movie is, yeah, those are plot issues. It doesn't bother me. I think because the emotional stakes are so good, all the elements are so good. Marla, by the way, huge crush on her. She's by far my favorite of the Craig Bond women, easily. And the Adele song, yeah, it's easily like the top. Gosh, best Bond song of 20 years, 30 years maybe. If Katie Lang's Tomorrow Never Dies counted, that would give it a run of money. But other than that, I don't know. But yeah, a lot of good symmetry I could get into later. There's like really good balance going on, beginning and end, and a lot of interesting inversions of the Bond formula, but also still give a Bond movie, which is this weird trick that it does, and that's why I like it. It gives me a lot to chew on, as well as just enjoy as a Bond fan.
Dave.
Yeah, I agree with all you guys. I think this is one of the best, not just maybe the best Daniel Craig movie, but one of the best in the whole series. I think when I go back and forth on whether I think Casino Royale or Skyfall is the best Daniel Craig movie. This one might have a slight edge, and it might be because of a lot of the things Bob mentions, where you get more of that Bond flavor back, more of the humor. You kind of get, like with Casino Royale, they're kind of really bringing it back to basics, stripping the character down, and building him back up again over the course of the next few movies. Now we get a lot of those, more humor, not just in Bond's humor, but there's even like little moments of almost physical comedy in this that you hadn't really had in the first two, like when he's in the gambling den in Macau and he falls into the pit and there's the Komodo dragons, which feels very Live and Let Die, very Roger Moore. You get Q again, you get gadgets again. There are those nice hat tips to the long history of the series, the 50th anniversary. And I also think one of the things that is this movie really has working for it is I think it's easily the best looking Bond movie. Brilliant cinematography by Roger Deakins. I think without a doubt, this is the best looking Bond movie. Just some great locations. Each location really has its own identity, really stands out. You don't have the problem this one like you had in previous movies. I think Brad mentioned it last week when he talked about Quantum of Solace, where even though Bond's traveling to many different countries in that one, they all kind of like mesh together. In this one, there's no mistaking. When Bond goes from one location to the next, it feels like he's in a completely new setting. There's no risk of you mistaking it for wherever he just came from. It's just a beautiful looking movie. And, I think No Time to Die comes close, but I still think this is still the best looking Bond movie. And that's one of the things that's one of its strongest, one of its biggest strengths.
Cinematography, the direction, everything it meshed together way better. Well, we saw with Quantum of Solace that Mark Forster was trying to push the boundaries of how a Bond film could look. There are things he was trying to do that I gave him credit for, but just wasn't quite working, wasn't quite clicking. In this case, Sam Mendes and Deakins, they're on the same page. They know what they want to do. That bit in the bit on the high rise when Bond goes to intercept the assassin, and there's that cool fight with the shadows and the lights shining on them, and the storytelling is so easy to follow. You can see how the fight is working. No quick cuts too. Those guys, those two, I'm assuming stuntmen, had a great choreographed match between them, where you could tell what was going to happen to whom. Although to me, a little bit, Bond like has the guy, he's holding him over, over the edge, and he's like, "Tell me who's working for you," and Bond's only using one hand to hold on to the guy. you're gonna drop him. So if you really want to hold on to him, use both hands, right? Yeah.
Well, but remember, as he's riding the bottom of the elevator all the way up at the beginning of that scene, he takes the hand off and kind of
I do have
a little bit
one
of a cramp and then goes back on.
About the
I think we're having some audio issues.
Uh-oh.
Tab and Elliot were just like having completely separate conversations all simultaneously.
True. Are we?
Yeah. I think it is, yeah.
Here we go again. Here we go again. All right. Well, let me kick this over to you guys then, because if you can't hear me that well, Bob, back to you. What are the things about Skyfall that impressed you, that make you think this is one of the better films?
Well, thematics definitely.
Kicking it to you, Bob.
Yeah, talking about the various themes going on in the film. There's definitely thing with death and rebirth. It literally opens with a death of Bond, a symbolic Bond, and it ends on a literal death of M. And as you go through film, Bond is sort of I don't know, like a kind of atoning for the sin of failure. This also deals with failure too. He failed at the list, and he also fails to save M. But on the other side, he does succeed in killing the villain, in the list at the end. We assume, anyways. So that's why I like it. It's kind of one and the other. You know what I mean? It's kind of playing with the expectations of a Bond film, but in a good way. What I also like is mentioning kind of this inversion going on. Like what you have is, look at this, M is Judi Dench's M is recast in the role of the victim, the ultimate that Bond doesn't save at the end. Tracy and On Her Majesty's. Q is more or less recast similar to Kill as more of like a Felix Leiter ally. He's much more on the mission with him and helping him out in a much more proud way than just here's a gadget, bye. And then Moneypenny is basically the main Bond girl movie, because they have much more romantic tension, and she's Moneypenny until the end. And Bond himself, Silva, is an evil version of Bond. This is said very deliberately, calling him a shadow of Bond. In the opening titles, you see Craig, like bunch of shadows, and runs into Silva. Very plain as day. That's what they're going for, and it's essentially what would Bond have become if he had gone bad, so to speak. Oh, that's why I like it. It's like it plays with things, but in a cool way, not in some way I'm like, oh, that's dumb, like off the reservation. And that's what I really like about it. I can get more into all of this. I'm just trying to scratch this for you guys.
Did I miss a joke when Silva talks about the amount of time he was in MI6? It's like, yeah, from 87 to 2000 something. I'm like, was I missing a reference like to a previous Bond or something in there?
I don't think so. Not specifically.
Yeah.
Unless they said it's in 95, that would definitely be like Dalton. but they
No.
over 97. So I don't know.
I don't remember the exact time. All I know is that he was very specific about the amount of time when he worked for MI6, and he was, he said he was M's favorite then. I remember, and every time I've watched this film, I've always wondered, was it true? Did M really have that kind of relationship with him, or was that a construct in Silva's own mind? Like, did M really treat him like? Again, we saw between M and Bond, there's kind of almost a maternal type of relationship between them, even though M's not above telling Moneypenny, take the shot. If I'm going to lose you in the field, and we got to, if I got to risk getting you shot, I will risk getting you shot. But she still cares. I always wondered, okay, was that the relationship she also had with Silva? And did it get to the point, as she said, hey, the dude went off the reservation. He started doing stuff outside of what he was supposed to do. I turned him over to the Chinese, and I got people back. There was that parallel there that I just wondered, did Silva was he really that attached to M, or was it just something that went on in his head? What do you think, Tab?
Please go. Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that is something that I've wondered is, was he legitimately her favorite, or was he just a guy? Was he just 00 fill in the number? And it's interesting when you consider that idea with M assigning 00s and where the number isn't necessarily permanent, and where it goes with the references in No Time to Die with the new 007 coming to pick Bond up and get him back on the job. So it is interesting to kind of see how that plays forward with the idea that there's a personal relationship, and whether it's M personally, or, flag and country, or if it's the duty. But there's this attachment that in many of it feels an emotional thing. You're right. It is very maternal, especially in Skyfall. And, to Bob's point about the contrasts, I think the way that Silva very callously chases M down at the end of the movie, and then almost pleads with her to ease his pain before Bond ultimately does. Spoiler. And, but then, like, there's the emotion feels more neurotic than sincere. And then when Bond holds M in his arms as she passes, the sincerity of his emotion and the way that he's seemingly crushed by her passing, I thought that the way that the emotions played between Craig and Bardem in that scene were really powerful. And that's one of the scenes that I think from all of the Craig Bonds that really stands out for me. But I think that the only thing that I'll say that from this movie that really pissed me off was when they blew the car up. Never do that to that car. But I did appreciate when he pulled out of the garage and they went OG with the original song. I thought that was one of those little things, and I think you and I both kind of chuckled a little bit in the theater when we saw it the first time, when they went OG with the song when they pulled the original car out of the garage. That was just one of those little things that was incredibly well played, but it broke my heart watching that thing get destroyed.
I only my thing with
it's like, how many of the
my thing with the Aston getting blown up, though, is like it's supposed to be this big dramatic moment, but then they just bring it back in the next movie.
Right.
And then it has such a big role in the subsequent two films. It's like the significance of it being destroyed really doesn't mean that much, because it's just, we're just going to rebuild it anyway.
Well, and that was one of the things that I laughed about when I watched the next movie, because again, when my initial walk away from Skyfall was that there was so much closure to elements of Bond as a character in this movie. He goes back to his childhood home, which has been sold. all of his dad's guns are gone, and they blow his childhood home to smithereens, and he basically commits the thing to its ultimate demise with the gas tanks. And it felt like blowing up the Aston Martin was kind of part of that moving on from the past of Bond into wherever the character is going to go now, which kind of reminded me a little bit of like in the Christopher Nolan Batman movies when they burned that house to the ground too. It was like, we're going to put closure on what you perceived of this character at one point, and we're going to go in this direction. But then you'd show up for the next movie, and he just happens to have another one. They're Happy Meal toys for Bond. Why not have 3 Aston Martins in the garage?
And the thing I want to know is he wins the DB5 in a card game in Casino Royale. Is this the same one? Did he ask Q as like a favor? Yeah, fill this thing with gadgets. I want to have machine guns behind the headlights, or an ejector seat, smoke bombs in the back. Because
I need that outtake. Bond rolling into the garage and tossing the keys to Q and be like, "Hey, I got something for you. Soup it up for me." Like he's getting it detailed on the weekend. There's some guns behind the lights. What the hell?
You guys. I wondered that exact same thing. No, I was right there with you. I was like, how does that work? It's not his car. Anyway.
I have heard Skyfall referred to as the Dark Knight of Bond movies. A lot of similar themes going on there. As I'm watching this, I'm going, oh yeah, the references to childhood, just like in the Dark Knight. There's a scene where the groundskeeper, I forgot the name of the groundskeeper, tells M that Kincaid tells M that when Bond heard about the death of his parents, he went into those tunnels that go under the moor, out into the fields. Goes, and when he came back, he wasn't the same, or he wasn't a boy anymore, or something like that. I was thinking Bruce Wayne, in the Batcave.
Yeah.
So there are all these little parallels there, things. Which again, I'm not saying that's one lifting from the other. That's really a very common theme in hero stories, telling about the birth and rebirth. As you said, Bob, there's a lot of symbolic death and rebirth throughout this film. I do want to say, though, Bob, you did bring this up. Thomas Newman's score, for me, for this particular film, just really, really, it worked for me. There are a lot of scenes, even in that scene when M dies, her death, and those horns that are like playing underneath the scene, not too overpowering, just enough to give it an air of solemnness.
When M is quantum of solace.
A quantum, yes. When M's visiting with when she's with the caskets of the MI6 agents that were killed in the attack on the headquarters, the score to me was like, wow, I forgot how really good this score is. And of course, Thomas Newman has worked with Sam Mendes before. He would be at American Beauty and a whole bunch of other films that Mendes has done. So you could tell he really knows what Mendes wants in a scene to help build the emotion, and did it to me expertly. A little bit different, yes, felt different from other scores, but for this particular film, it did work. Mm-hmm. What happened to the freaking list? That's what I want to know. I know we're assuming that with Silva's death that the thing disappears. How do we know that Silva didn't just go, hey, if I die, I want you to put out 5 more names every week, until that whole list is out there. I forgot about that little plot thread, and that's the one thing that kind of nagged at me at the end of the film. Are there any other thingies, any other plot threads or things that might have nagged at you guys? I'll start with you, Tab.
Well, one thought on that, and that actually came into my mind the first time that I watched No Time to Die, because that opens with them chasing some kind of list, and then they have the B list that they ultimately use for the dispensing of said stuff, without throwing complete spoilers out there for the 8 people watching that have not seen that movie yet. But just in case there's one out there, we won't totally spoil it. But there's that reference to like, oh, it was designed for this list, but he's using it for this list. And I was like, what the hell ever happened to the, like, is that the same knock list that Tom Cruise is chasing in 47 movies? Like, they just sent Tom Cruise after it for the next 25 years. So yeah, that one kind of, bit at me. There weren't a lot of big, like, huge plot holes necessarily with this one that were like deal breakers for me. I think that they wandered away from some of the standard stuff. You didn't have like your traditional Bond girl that was like just either the straight up, friends with benefits, or the like victim with benefits, or just the benefits with benefits. It was tension with what ultimately became Moneypenny, and that was it. And you had the girl that got shot in the head, but that was very brief, much more brief than it felt like some of many of the other Bond girls had actual airtime for. And I did appreciate, that was a damn waste of a good scotch after he shot her. But there weren't really a lot of like massive plot holes for me. I think just, I make the joke about Tom Cruise because I always kind of laugh at how Mission Impossible-ish him jumping on the train was going when, he gets the word that he's supposed to be on the train after it leaves, and he has to jump on the windshield wipers and ask the lady to politely open the door. But I really, other than, there wasn't like a lot of huge gaps for me in this one. It might be just because I've enjoyed it so much that I block out anything that might be a hole in the script, because I just accept everything at face value. But I just think the way that they there were little things that they alluded back to also, and watching it second, third, 15th time, showing M's dog early in the movie on her desk as she's writing his obituary. And then, oh, there it is. And then he gets it at the end of the movie after her will is read. I just thought that Mendes was brilliant with a lot of the little things that you didn't Easter eggs at maybe the beginning of the movie that you didn't realize that there was something to it that was visually brought back, or in some way had a larger element than you would think later in the movie. So again, maybe I've got some blinders on because it's one of my favorite movies of all time in the Bond series from start to finish, but there really weren't a lot of huge gaps that we haven't already talked about, like the was he actually her favorite or was he crazy part. There really wasn't much for me to get lost with in this one.
Dave, Brad Hansen, Bob's Ultimate Bondcast cohort says it was the same DB5. He paid money to have it converted to RHD, and either the OQ or a private company to take it out.
Is it?
So
I want to know if that's Brad's theory or is that like canon? Has that been like confirmed somewhere? I mean, that makes sense. I hadn't read about that.
He took it to West Coast Customs and had them put machine guns in it.
Something, because they make a point of
He
saying
took a 62 Aston Martin to pimp my ride.
They make a point of saying that they ditched the other car because it's a company car with a tracker, and that's Bond's car. So it can't be just some cute car that he kept. It has to be something privately done. But it's weird that it's done with 60 style gadgets, and M is aware of the ejector seat button. She knows about. It's so weird. It's like you really can't think about it too hard. I mean, I want to, but it hurts my brain. So I kind of let that one go. But that is the plot hole.
Yeah.
I got a bunch. Brad's told me about a bunch. I got a bunch. I love this movie to death. I could walk through a bunch of plot problem movie, but it's like I'm kind of with you guys. I'm like, I kind of don't care. which is weird. I normally care about these things, but I can kind of let them all go. Like, how does Bond survive getting shot and falling off the train? Not explained. Why is there not a bullet wound with the other one that he's nice? Don't see the money bullet wound. Silva's plan is
adamantium.
complex, and there's no way he could have timed all that out. With he was going to plug in the computer, and when the train was going to come, like all that was way too coincidental. It's a lot to watch, but it doesn't make sense if you think about it. Stuff like that. Why didn't they hide tunnels in the house to protect her? Why was she even out fighting with them if they were trying to protect her? Why does Bond go to Skyfall that it's like low tech and to kind of get off a tech turf, but doesn't bring other guys? He doesn't go to a more well fortified place. It's a little bit of a symbolically amazing, but physically, I don't know.
I agree with you. I was like at one point going, the moment these guys show up, why doesn't he just have Kincaid take M out under the tunnels and go and just hide in there for a bit? Just hang out until everything blows over. Because it wasn't like a couple extra guns were going to make that big of a difference.
Damn it, Kincaid, put the flashlight away.
Yeah.
You're scot-free if you turn off the flashlight. No flashlight, you're good. The movie ends with the house blowing up and Bond diving in a ditch because the thing blew up. We're good.
I mean, and he does like, it's like they Home Alone the whole thing at the end. And they're going, I said last week they missed out big time by not having the groundskeeper played by Macaulay Culkin. That would have been awesome. You know?
Okay. I got to say about the third act. Number one, am I right in thinking Kincaid looks like he would have been written for Sean Connery? Because it felt very much like Sean should have been that part. Like older groundskeeper.
They considered him for the part.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. They even considered him, and they thought it would be that might be a bridge too far. Like having a previous.
No pun intended.
Here. Yeah.
I would agree. I think it's fine. He wasn't cast in the part, but there is that line where he's like, "Are you ready?" He's like, "Before you were born, son." And I'd be like, that seems like it was in there for Connery if he had played the part. Anyway. But no, the third act, everyone says alone, and I totally see that. Even though the idea of outnumbered, outgunned, having to come up with little homemade traps to fight off more bad guys or outnumbered bad guys. That goes back to like the A-Team for takes or Predator or Pick Your War. I mean, it's
MacGyver
or MacGyver. Yeah. It's not a Home Alone thing, I know, but that's an easy one to go to. But there's a really, really direct parallel to. I'm a big spy junkie, so I'm gonna bring franchise guys. I Spy. If you've ever seen I Spy, in fact, Bill Cosby's in it. It's a great show. There's an episode called Home to Judgment. It's considered the best episode of the series. It was written by the lead playing Kelly Robinson, the Bond character of I Spy. Very, very similar. I'm convinced John Logan must have been a fan of this because there's just too many similarities. It's the whole thing is the two agents, because it's a buddy show, are going to Kelly's homestead, a farm in the middle of nowhere, just like Skyfall, and they have to defend against this big dozen horde of dudes that are gonna come for them at night, and they've got to prepare with all these homemade traps. And Kelly grew up there, just like John grew up at Skyfall. They've only got guns. Bond's dad's shotgun, Kelly's childhood hunting gun in Home to Judgment, and his aunt and uncle are there. So you have these two elderly sort of parental figures have to kind of reconcile our lead as well as help defend the homestead. And at the end, and there's dynamite and the light switch stuff. I mean, very similar kind of traps. And at the end, they do the bad guys at a cost. M died in Skyfall. And in I Spy, Scotty, his long-term partner, who we've seen for two, is also wounded. We're not sure critically or not. And both of them come out kind of reborn, kind of like they've gone through this massive sort of personal and perilous trial. And I don't know. Look at it, I'm like, you just stole Home to Judgment. But cool, it's a great I Spy episode, and nobody else is getting this crazy diehards. So that's it's well worth checking out if you can never find it. Home to Judgment, great episode.
Cool.
they say that talent borrows while genius steals. So, if they stole it, then hey, nothing wrong with that. And worked it in. They worked it in. And it still works. I mean, it still works to an extent. And you need to come up with you need to blow up something at the end of the Bond film. So,
yeah.
Blow up
Well, that's
Skyfall.
the other thing is that if you think about it, that's the other kind of weird symmetry is that the villain's lair, which typically blows up, is in the middle of the movie, and it's decrepit. It's already falling apart. Bond's lair, his actual job lair of MI6, blows up at the beginning. And I think it's interesting they chose that building to give it history. Like, that's the building we saw through all the Brosnan movies. At the end, Bond's other lair, his personal lair, his home that we've never seen before, is the ultimate, and that blows up. And I find that also like this weird flip that you would never get, because again, normally volcano base or something at the end of these things, and that's not happening here.
I'm curious.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I bought into the whole why are they going out to the middle of nowhere, was the idea that his modern adult home, what he considered home base once he had that transformation after his parents died, was blown up. So he went back to where before that, the personal home, and then that blew up, and that was kind of like, now he doesn't have any home. So where do the series go from here? Because his home office is gone, his adult home, his professional home, the only personal home that he's had that he said that he hated, he's always hated this place, is gone. And so I thought that symmetry was pretty good in the way that technology was kind of the way that Silva got to him, getting away from that technology. It was just the contradictions and contrasts between how he was attacked at the beginning, or MI6 was attacked at the beginning, and then the evolution of his character going really all the way from where it was before he got killed to then that crisis, him coming back, and then really almost hitting the rewind all the way back to the beginning of his life and wiping the slate completely clean by blowing up both homes. I thought that part of the plot worked for me, and that's why I kind of was like, yeah, it's cool. Let's go out in the middle of nowhere with nobody and shoot at each other and go 5-on-12 with nothing but a helium tank and 5 balloons and shotgun shells instead of light bulbs. Because it was the complete opposite of what he'd always done.
We love a David and Goliath story. What you're saying, and his flat was sold. He didn't even have his flat anymore. Man got rid of it. It's like he's completely. So yeah.
My question is, was it the same flat that Roger Moore had in Live and Let Die, and did the espresso maker go with it? Because that was something.
No. It was
if
not.
They kept his dad's hunting gun, they kept the espresso machine. No,
it can't be. It's a reboot. Saying, but if you want to say he had a cool espresso machine, sold cars, sure. Yeah, why not? Throw it in.
Well, Live and Let Die was Sam Mendes' favorite Bond movie, so he probably would have put the espresso machine in there if he really wanted to.
Nice.
Judi Dench offered him one when he was half hammered, waiting for her at home.
I know you got to go in a bit, Bob, but tell me this. I mean, we were talking a lot about how these films been getting influenced, like, let's say, by the Jason Bourne movies, Mission Impossible, and so on. And this is me. Maybe I have a personal bias here, because you were talking about the kind of punishment that Bond took. He gets shot by Moneypenny, falls off the friggin' train, lands in the water, and you think, that didn't kill him. You know what? The moment he got shot in the shoulder and he had the blood coming down and he's like, keeps going like nothing, made me think Indiana Jones. Exact same thing happens to him in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He gets shot in the shoulder. There's a scene where he's got blood soaking his shirt and he just keeps going. And I really felt like this was a case where Bond was feeling more indie than vice versa. Because before that, I mean, action hero, yes, but did Bond take that sort of punishment in any of the previous incarnations of the character? I don't recall that.
No.
Felt very
not
John
in the
McClane too.
movies.
A little bit of John McClane in there too.
Well, I mean, Casino, the famous rope scene, but I mean, prior to the Craig era, they were never that visceral hurting Bond. You didn't see his hair get mussed too much. Maybe at the end of Doctor Who or something, but it wasn't. I mean, come on, you have to go to the books to level of Bond torture, I think.
Right. And you make that great point too. Is like he gets Moneypenny shoots him in one arm, and the dude with the repeating. With the irradiated ammo? Who the hell uses it? What's the point of having an irradiated ammunition? Because then people can find out who you are for sure. I just
never mind the fact that he somehow held onto it while he was riding the motorbike.
Yeah, well, he kept the stuff's been like staying it was in his shoulder all the time until finally he decides, oh, you know what, I'm gonna cut this out of me now. He doesn't go to somebody, hey, can we get this out of my shoulder? There were all those little bits that on review, I'm like, okay, why is it? He looks like a badass, don't get me wrong, and I'm pretty sure that's what they were trying to do. But you sit there and you go, okay, why is this happening like this? I'm really, I don't know. But you don't think about it as it's happening. Afterward, you're like, yeah.
Well, after Moneypenny shoots Bond, why doesn't she shoot again to get the guy she meant to shoot? She had time.
Those 75 meters before he went under the bridge. Let's just watch.
Yeah.
We're good here.
Pretty much.
Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, at least
I will say it did make for a nice callback though, and No Time to Die though. When they bring it up, when Nomi says the Moneypenny, oh, so you shot him, didn't you? And she goes, oh yeah, it's kind of a thing. Everyone wants to shoot 007.
Everyone in this movie shot.
I know you got to go, Bob. Any more thoughts you want to share before you have to call it?
Oh, I'm good for another hour. Yeah, so I'm okay.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay, good. I thought we were playing. It's these time zones. These time zones are throwing me off here.
Here's my question about Moneypenny. Does Bond sleep with Moneypenny? That is because I think there's a strong argument that he did, because she is basically the main Bond girl. But because tradition says he should Penny, they play it real nebulous, so you believe that they didn't. But that shaving scene, he's like basically naked in a towel. He's playing with her blouse. They're right there. You can believe as soon as they cut, and then afterwards she's wearing a different dress, and they're talking about extra pins, and she's like, ooh, yeah. And you're like, what happened with Bond and Moneypenny? Did they sleep together? Do you think they slept together?
I think he gets away with sleeping with her because he didn't know she was Moneypenny yet.
So you think they did?
I've always thought that they did, and that only because he didn't know that she was Moneypenny. We didn't know that she was Moneypenny, and there's little things that she says later about the tongue-in-cheek comment, pun intended, about the close shave later in the movie.
Yep.
Things like that. So I've always been of the belief that they did in fact consummate the professional relationship.
Dave?
I don't think they did.
Enough.
No, and I think the thing with the Bond and Moneypenny dynamic, obviously this is a reboot, so they could do things differently, but it's always been like there's that like burning sexual tension, but nothing ever happens. It's just nothing but flirtation. She is his work wife sort of thing, but they never actually, like the closest thing we get is when the virtual reality thing at the end of Die Another Day, she's got the goggles on and she's dreaming of making out with him. That's the closest I think we would ever get to actually seeing Bond and Moneypenny get together. But no, I think I don't think they ever actually did anything in this movie.
I will say that if he did, like what you guys would assert, I mean, it's kind of a dick move on his part that he still didn't know her last name afterwards.
I don't think he even knew her first name.
No,
Right,
he
he
had
was
no
never
idea who
formally
he just knew that
introduced,
she
right.
shot him and that she was his driver before.
Yeah, I was
got
like,
on the
you don't know her
motorcycle.
name. She shot you. You slept with her. Through all that, you still don't know the gal's name. Come on, dude.
Good point. Good point.
I don't think he
I don't know if that's
he did though, because it seems to me that in the Daniel Craig movies, Bond only beds one gal per movie. It's like, remember in Quantum, it's just the same thing. He didn't sleep with one of the gals he met. I'm trying to remember which one. And even in a Casino Royale, the wife of
Right.
the
Solange, yeah.
Yeah, they make out, but they don't sleep together. He only beds one woman per film.
In Spectre, there's the widow played by Monica Bellucci, and then Leia Seydoux Swan. So that's 2.
All right. Well, I haven't seen that. I have legit only seen Spectre once, and that was in the theater.
Okay.
And yeah, because I was like afterwards, I can't do this again, but I'm gonna have to now.
Well, even in Skyfall, there's the on the island. You barely see her, but she's there. Green on the boat. So that's 2.
Okay,
definitely 2. So I know, close, almost.
Maybe. No,
Maybe.
It's got to be an even number.
Even number.
Even number.
Even number. Yeah, I actually think Severine absolutely is a legit victim Bond girl. She completely fulfills the classic sacrificial part to a T. Very Jill Masterson in Goldfinger, who also doesn't stick around very long, but makes a heck of it when she dies. So so I think that's what I think is cool, is that M is like this big victim, and Severine was the classic Bond and second lamb victim. Brad and I had a big discussion about this, because we were like, how many Bond films are there 2 victims? And there are a few, like Goldfinger has a couple, and You Only Live Twice has a couple, Quantum of Solace, Mathis, and Strawberry Fields. So there's a precedent for it.
The audience.
The audience. Anyway, there's so much about this film. Okay, so now with the perspective on this, I mean, Bob, again, I'm just curious with the Ultimate Bond cast, when you ranked all 26 films, right? My first question is, wait, do you guys count Never Say Never Again?
We did, yeah.
Okay, so that would be 27 films then, wouldn't it?
No, that would be 26. Unless,
26?
Because
No Time to Die would be the 25th?
No Time to Die is the 25th official film.
Okay. And then Never Say Never is unofficial. All right. So where would this one rank in the Ultimate Bondcast rankings, Bob?
It was pretty high. I'm sorry, I don't remember Brad's gonna kill me. Maybe he can chime in on the comment. Remember where it ended up in our rejigged after putting No Time to Die. I know No Time to Die brought a lot of the Craigs down by association for us, but I know initially it was, oh god, it was 3 or 4. It was high, and for me personally, it was like, I think 7. It's hard for me to put a Craig above some of my all-time favorite classic Bond, but if by trust me, that's very high for a Craig, because I've got a love-hate thing with the approach on Craig, but this one completely worked for me. I thought that this was really fantastic. So that's what I remember. I can comment to correct me, because I can't remember where it ended up on our last time. You can go listen to our podcast and for yourself. But yeah, it was still I'm pretty sure it was still in the 10.
And if you go to our YouTube page, you'll see we have linked to the Ultimate Bondcast. It's on the Retro Cars Forever show, and the Ultimate Bondcast. You will find a link to the first segment of the Ultimate Bondcast, and it's a 3-parter, and a lot of discussion. I'm still working my way through it.
Lot to chew on. Yep.
I'm sorry?
Chew on. Lot to go through.
Yeah, and I will say, there's that one time when you and Brad started throwing ninja stars at each other. I was like, wow, I was not expecting that. Folks, you got to watch it. You got to see for yourself. You got to watch it. Uh, Dave, I'm curious because Brad brought up, I'm sorry, Tab brought up the bit about the 007s, the numbers being assigned. Has that ever been addressed in any of the books? Like, have they ever say how you work your way through the 007? How high does it go? Does it go all the way to 9? Is it 1 through 9? Is there a 010? Or is it like the Bears where they once they retire a number, they can't ever assign it again? You know, stuff like that.
I believe there are double agents that actually go into the double digits. I think there's a 0011 at one point. I think that's the highest they go. But I don't believe it's ever explained how numbers are how they're assigned.
They don't rotate through like if the guy.
I've never heard.
Yeah. Because I just finished. I'm still reading Casino Royale. It's like my right before bed, which is again quite a breezy read. I can knock out like 2 or 3 chapters right before I go to sleep. And Bond does make reference to his 00 designation and what it means, and it does speak a lot to the character about what it, just being able to kill somebody, being able to do the thing, which is a theme that went throughout Skyfall. We're looking at a change in how espionage and how dealing with security threats throughout the world, how technology has kind of lapped human intelligence in the field. And they are, Q makes this comment to Bond of how he can do more in his pajamas on a laptop, than Bond can do an entire year out in the field.
Before his Earl Grey.
Before, yes, first cup of Earl Grey. Although now we're learning, as we do, that a lot of the big screw-ups that have been going on around the world with geopolitical events and I'll say specifically the United States dealing with different issues, the mistakes that were made because of a lack of human intelligence, because they didn't have people on the ground or reliable people on the ground telling them what's going on. So my whole thing here is looking forward, what trumps what? Are we going to always, is Bond always going to be a product of human intelligence or technology?
I kind of got the feeling from when he met with the new Q, in an art museum, and that conversation where he asks him, "What do you see?" and Q sees an old boat going out to die, and Bond sees a old warrior that's got one left in the tank. The fact that one of the criticisms of the Brosnan Bonds was you don't have to have a cell phone in a shoe anymore. Everybody's got a phone on their wrist. We've all got iWatches now, so you don't need to give us the part of the the 60s Bonds was oh, what's the cool gadget? And now it's everybody's got a freaking gadget, so show me something else. And the fact when they catch him on the island with Silva and he says, "New thing from Q Branch, it's called a radio," the most basic thing. And it was kind of playing in the courtroom scene too, where they're pushing on M about what do we need you for? And there are a couple conversations in there where, again, in the museum, Bond says, sometimes you need to know whether or not the trigger should be pulled. And M's response to why do we need you? And it's because you need to have discernment in the field. And I felt like that theme kind of, again, goes back to why are you going back to this? Defend yourself with the absolute leanest means possible, making many of your defense mechanisms by hand, MacGyver-like rescue plot was a direct, stamp of the human element and the basic me versus you mano a mano instead of my guns are bigger than your guns or my car shoots faster and blows more hot oil or whatever than yours does. It was really the complete contradiction of no gadgets. You're literally sticking shotgun shells and nails in the light bulb sockets and blowing up the gas tanks that are left. So that was one of the things that I thought really played through the entire movie. But I did think that there was a very strong statement being made that it's not a drone driven endeavor, but you need to have a human set of eyes in many instances on something. But there were a number of pieces in the dialogue where they spoke specifically to that, with the young and the old generations having very different opinions on it.
As Kincaid said, sometimes the old ways work best.
Yep.
I will say, having Silva die from a knife in the back,
Yeah.
Right.
which is a real Bond thing. I mean, now if you literally had a knife in your back like that, it wouldn't kill you. But in a Bond film, it does.
Thrown from like 30 feet away, by the way.
30 feet away.
Like he just came in the door and that thing was completely buried through a jacket and a shirt. Never mind. But yeah.
Because which one
The
was
Bears
it
are going
where-
to pay Daniel Craig to play quarterback if he can throw a knife that hard.
Oh, really? Because which Dave, which one was it where the villain gets killed like with a pocket knife in the back? I forgot.
For your eyes only.
For your eyes only. It's like a pocket knife. I think like maybe this long.
There's a screwdriver and a
back.
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. Yeah. That was another nice callback. Knife in the back.
Yeah, Chris
kills.
Santos at the end of the movie when he gets stabbed.
Yes. That
Nice.
cracks me up. That cracks me up.
Still
Okay.
a classic. Still a class.
Yes.
I want to throw out a crazy idea. I don't want to get too far away from Skyfall. We can just certainly jump back into this, no problem. But I wanted to, since I have you guys here now, I had a crazy idea occur to me just within the past few days with all of this talk about, recasting Bond and Barbara Broccoli's already gone on record as saying they're still trying to figure it out. They're not quite sure yet. They know they want to start over and get it going again, but they're gonna figure it out. Why not bring back Timothy Dalton for another Bond film? Why not bring back Pierce Brosnan for another? Bring back the surviving Bond actors.
The
Let 'em do
multiverse
another-
goes Bond.
Yeah, there you go. The Bond multiverse.
Yes, variants.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, just see what happens.
I'd love to see that. I mean, I don't
Comes
think
out with a Russian accent in a submarine. Who cares?
I don't think there's a snowball in hell of that happening, but I would love it.
Having
They
those
ne- they ne-
actors. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
having
no,
those
they-
actors-
They
Go
would
ahead,
never.
Bob.
They would never do it. I would agree. But would I love to see it? Absolutely. Would I love to see Timothy Dalton, some sort of older, never say never again kind of on near retirement or one last mission kind of thing? Oh yeah, I love Dalton. Please give me another Dalton Bond any day of the week.
There's a new comic out right now from Image called King of Spies, written by Mark Millar. Mark Millar, who created the Kingsmen. It's essentially a Bond type character. It's like he has 6 months left to live because he just learned that he's got like terminal cancer, and he wants to like settle a lot of scores or make amends with a bunch of people in the last 6 months. And the character in the comic looks very much like a bearded Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, I remember when they announced that and the artwork.
Mhm.
I was like, oh yeah, if they turn this into a movie, they're already casting Pierce Brosnan without a movie even being planned yet. They've already got him in mind.
Nice.
It looks like Pierce Brosnan. I'm like, oh my goodness, look at that. And I'll tell you, I am not the biggest Mark Millar fan, Mark Miller fan, but that alone would get me. I didn't care for the comic book series, the Secret Service, but the Kingsman supposed to be much better. So
I just saw the new one and much better than the second new prequel. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Oh, nice.
all right, yeah. So then my question is, are they fighting Rasputin or Alan Moore? Because I can't tell the difference between. between the two.
Question. Technically neither, and that's all.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, cool. I am going to see that.
Well
and
teased, Bob. Well teased.
Yeah. John Clark of Caffeinated Comics has already convinced us that we need to talk about the Kingsman movies in a future episode. So we'll be hitting those next. Because if they do King of Spies starring Pierce Brosnan, I am so there. I am there with bells on. Because
we talked about this. Brosnan's done a lot of movies post Bond where he plays very Bond-like characters.
Yeah.
I could totally see him doing that type of role now in like another comic book movie type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why
I'm sorry. The new Kingsman ad. You have Gemma Adderton from Quantum. You have Ralph Fiennes from Ball and Onward, and Charles Dance from For Your Eyes Only is in the movie.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, a lot of Bond in this. And Fiennes at one point in a pinstripe suit with a bowler hat and a rosewood umbrella, just like John Steed that he played in the '98 Avengers. Mm-hmm. So I was like, nice. I see what you're doing, guys. I see what you're doing. So it's fun stuff. It's good.
Nice.
Got to see that. I'm and I saw the new season of Alex Rider, and they have what's his name from Tomorrow Never Dies in it. I gotta say, I'm seeing so much Bond stuff thrown my way that I'm being too picky about it. It's like I can see when they're trying to be Bond-ish and it's not quite working. You know, I don't know.
What do you mean? Like in a non-Bond thing that's trying to be Bond?
Yeah, like the Alex Rider series, which feels like James Bond Jr., but it's too. You have to. I don't know. There's something about it that it only seems to work in the Bond universe. And to your point, Bob, as I've been watching the Daniel Craig films, and Brad brought this up too. It's like they're trying so hard to make it grounded and quote unquote realistic, but you can't with Bond. If you make Bond too realistic, it kind of takes away the hyper realism, the fantastic element, the escapist fantasy element of the character, which is what really makes it work. Because, don't talk to actual intelligence people about James Bond. That drives them nuts. They're like, that's not the way spycraft works. And the more and more you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Spies don't attract that much attention to themselves. Spies don't spend so much time blowing things up. One spy isn't like an expert in all things like James Bond is, but that's what he's evolved into in the stories. So you sit there and you go, okay, well, what makes it work? What is the element of Bond? What are the things in Bond that really make it work? The reason I bring that up is because it seemed like with Skyfall, as you guys have already said, they found the parts of Bond that we really enjoy, that we're accustomed to. But in this film, the formula worked fine. The formula was perfect. They had a perfect balance. The action, the score, which we know has to hit certain notes for it to feel like a Bond film. The themes, the villains, the women, the locales, all that. Perfectly, those elements were perfectly balanced in Skyfall, and it seems so rare that they do that across the board in these films. I mean, if you ask me, as evidenced by Spectre, the follow-up.
Yeah.
I mean, what's it going to take? What does it take to make a perfect Bond film? If you ask me, or if I ask you guys, what does it take?
I think just the way that cinema's evolved. I mean, back when Connery was Bond again, like having the detonator as a magnet in his wristwatch was, oh, wow. And like having a private helicopter was a big deal. And so there was so much more of almost like the affluent elitist sex appeal that drove his character. And you kind of bought into this ordinary sort of guy that had whatever he needed to save the world working, because that's kind of what people needed in the 60s. But as cinema's evolved, and just as real life and the real world has evolved, you know, a guy having a shark in his swimming pool and putting the lid over it and having a guy get eaten isn't like, you know, that probably happened at De Niro's house last weekend just for the hell of it. So
Damn.
like, it's just like, I think a lot of the stuff that was like pushing your suspension of disbelief in the 60s, and you thought that it was the coolest thing ever, like, oh, a jetpack, that's amazing. Like, a lot of that doesn't wow us now. And just seeing where cinema's gone, the hard thing, and I think where the Brosnan movie struggled, was, one, get over the Cold War. Most of us have. And two, like, we don't need the green screen. Like, Bond was never a green screen thing. And so having like a very real feel to it, and I think what works so much for Skyfall, again, you guys have said it, it's a visually stunning movie. It is an absolutely gorgeous film. But they didn't feel like they needed to go crazy CGI with anything. It was a very raw, human-driven film that was very bare bones in that regard. And I think part of that was the story of kind of moving away from technology. But I think that's really what worked, especially in the last 3 Craig movies, was pulling it back. Where it goes from here is going to be tough, because you're going to have to recreate something. And it kind of, again, like we've talked about the Batman thing before, but it feels like when Christopher Nolan got done with Batman, like, now what? Like, you just absolutely nailed it in, you know, a series of movies that most of the diehards and even the casual fans love. You know, where does this character go from here? And obviously there's more for Batman to do within that comic universe than there is for a Bond, but I feel like they need to take some time and figure out, like, where do you go from here? Because Jason Bourne is kind of that not James Bond kid from Kansas who becomes a badass spy. And I feel like that if you want to go with the kid from England that becomes a badass spy, the Kingsman's not that. But like, the Jason Bourne movies have kind of done that for an American audience. So I don't know where the Bond character necessarily, and I don't even know if it is necessarily named Bond. It may be another 00, but which I think they appropriately teased with the new 007 that was not James Bond in No Time to Die. But I don't know. I struggle with where it goes from here, because that was one of my first thoughts after No Time to Die, is kind of like after the last scene where Christian Bale tips his cap to Michael Caine. Like, you kind of, like, No Time to Die kind of is that right off into the sunset moment. And your fear is that whoever comes next in the production, the directing, the lead acting, is going to screw it up. Which is crazy to think, because I think when you go back to when Craig took the role, you're like, oh, he's going to screw it up. So, but that's one of that's the biggest question that I have after No Time to Die, and going back and watching Skyfall again this weekend, not this afternoon, is like, what do you do with this role after this? Because I don't know how easy it is to reinvent something that you just reinvented really well, especially for me in the final 3. And, you know, again, I feel like I'm just absolutely crushing Quantum of Solace, but watching your last episode, I'm not really on a limb by myself on that one. But 4 of the 5 Craig movies, like, you did such a good job of recreating the character and the kind of the theory behind Bond. I don't know where you go from here, unless it's evolving the 007 franchise without James Bond, you know, James Bond being the guy at the centerpiece of it. And it just kind of wanders into a spy franchise. But I feel like that diminishes a little bit of what the 00 is about.
The whole thing too. I mean, I will say there is one aspect of Bond that they do not really explore in the films. That's all over the books. And again, reading Casino Royale. God, the dude is a snob when it comes to food. Okay. They need to have more food parts in the movies. I think going forward, whoever they cast as Bond, maybe somebody who was on Great British Bake Off, and bring him in, and have some scenes where he's explaining the differences in caviar and ordering food. Because I swear to God, I get hungry now when I read those damn passages in the book. So maybe that's
parts of that. Connery, Lazenby, and Dalton had some of them. Dalton brought in that basket for Lazenby knew his caviar when he was eating and beat up that dude. Connery was always schooling people on like the drink he was having or the sake at the right temperature. There was some of that of those Bonds, but I know what you're saying. It could be a lot more.
How about long, luxurious pans across tables of food? That's what I want. I want to see some, Bond style. I want to see the Bond scrambled eggs. He has scrambled eggs he has a three scrambled eggs with strips of bacon and black coffee. I want a shot of that, baby.
He burns his hash browns every day. He can't cook hash browns right.
Dave, you were going to say?
I was going to say that to your point, Bob, about how Connery and Lazenby and Dalton, there was some of that in their portrayals. I think Moore would have been the most convincing if they, because he exudes more of kind of like the snobbish Englishman, but he does a little bit of that in his movies. But they could have done that a lot more, and I think that's one aspect of the Fleming Bond that he might have been excelled at more than any of the other actors. But they didn't really do that to its fullest potential.
Agreed. If you look at Roger Moore in The Persuaders, which is a fun adventure show from the early 70s that he had to stop making to do James Bond, he plays that up much more as Lord Clare, and it's kind of hilarious the way they really push the humor there. And like there's a scene, as I remember, where like Tony Curtis is legit roughing it. Like campfire, with his toe like tied to she's cooking or something. And then there's Roger Moore, this palatial tent, and it's got a stove and like a TV, and it's like he's in an apartment, but it happens to be in the woods. It's fantastic. So yes, he could have.
I just find it okay. Just quick comparisons, because we did just talk about. I know Bob, you were on last week, so you can go to this. What is it that worked about Skyfall that just didn't work about Quantum of Solace? Why is it that we saw such a dramatic difference between the two films?
More time to write it. You weren't dealing with the crunch. I think you had a director who had a little more experience or at least vision. I think you just had a stronger screenplay that gave you that all these different layers and that emotional through line. Goes a long way. Great director photography to give you those gorgeous lens that Brad talked about, all the different color palettes for each location, and the right casting, getting his M and Naomi Harris's Moneypenny, and I think Ben Whishaw made a great Q. I'm assuming all liked the new Q, right? But I think he works great for Craig. I think it's just the planning and a bit of that luck of the right elements coming together at the right time. Because most of the same people made Spectre, and it's liked. I know it's not hated like Quantum, but I'm just saying generally people are going to put Skyfall over Spectre, and most of the same people made that. So what happened? Sometimes just like
I'm going to be keeping. When I'm watching Spectre, I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to keep making notes about, okay, wow, this is what happens here. Why that didn't happen there. And I really like that we're seeing with this. It's kind of like you see it's like three films, boom, boom, boom. And it's like, whoa, wow, whoa, what happened here, in all that. So I'm really going to be paying attention to that going forward.
I think the other thing too, with Quantum and with Spectre too, like Bob, you've said that you don't think that they used Christoph Waltz well enough, or that they could have used him more effectively. I think the strength of Javier Bardem's performance in that role really benefited the overall film. I think he was just phenomenal in that role in every regard. I mean, when they initially meet each other and he's quasi undressing him, and then there's the tongue in cheek when they're holding the guns out on the porch, and then there's him with M. His performance was so good that when you go to having like the behind closed doors cloaked villain in Spectre, you lost that face-to-face, not combat, but almost emotional combat that Bardem and Craig had. And in Quantum, everything really felt rushed. It was like, so here's a bad guy, and this is what he's doing, and we're going to go out in the desert and kill him now. And here's an explosion, and we're going to walk it off. There's your 30-second Quantum of Solace. But no, it Quantum feels just the most rushed, and obviously the writer's strike had a lot to do with that. But for me, I think the biggest thing that stood out between Quantum and also Spectre and this one was just the amount of power that Javier Bardem brought to the entire movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Bond films are often only as strong as their villains, right? Right. You can make that argument.
But Bardem really, yeah, no, but you're right. I mean, that we all agreed with Quantum. The villains weren't, were pretty meh. Didn't care. Nothing jumped out at us about him. Especially when your main villain like literally chops himself in the foot with an axe trying to fight Bond, and was that done for comedy or what? So no, Bardem was great. I mean, I'm thinking about him in No Country for Old Men, which was another incredible performance.
Okay.
I'm playing another really a memorable character. So he was very good at playing a memorable character.
Yeah. And I think he has a lot of
Dave,
qualities of like a classic Bond villain, more so than probably any of the other Craig era villains. He's got a distinctive appearance. He's got kind of that bleach blonde look. He's very flamboyant. And then he's got, but also very menacing at the same time. And he also has the thing, I know we talked about a couple weeks ago, the physical deformity or abnormality with the plate in his mouth that he takes out, and he looks very unnerving. So it was, and then Javier Bardem, casting a great actor to play the villain. It was just like this perfect recipe of all these elements to have a really memorable. And then like Tab was saying, just his first appearance, that cool long shot where he's just slowly approaching Bond and he gives that really memorable monologue. Like, what a great way to introduce the main villain of the story.
Yeah.
Is the name Silva from the book?
What was that, Elliot?
The name Silva, is that from one of the books?
No, that was an original creation.
So another original creation, because it felt very much like something you would read in a Fleming novel. Yeah. That's the other thing. The me thinking, what are elements in a Bond film that work? I couldn't tell watching Spectre. I couldn't tell what was something that they created. I'm not sorry, Spectre, Skyfall. I couldn't tell what was created just for the movie that they didn't. I was thinking, they lifted the name of that from the book. Oh, they probably got this idea from the book. Skyfall was very expert at this. I'd been so conditioned up to this point to recognizing certain elements as Fleming-ish that I couldn't tell what was counterfeit. So, I'll give him that. It's kind of like when you get the David Gilmour's Pink Floyd as opposed to Roger Waters' Pink Floyd. And some people, like I'm a big fan of the Roger Waters Pink Floyd, but I'm okay with the David Gilmour Pink Floyd.
Van Halen versus Van Hagar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that one too. But you always had Eddie. That was the thing. You always had Eddie. Eddie was basically what made it. Although now Eddie is now with the Angels. So yeah. I have to bring up, of all the crazy things that happened in this movie, and we talk about the plot holes and the things that, talk about the realism or unrealism of the Bond films. As someone who has ridden the tube in London during rush hour, no way, no how can you work your way through that train from one end to the other during rush hour. In fact, good luck getting on the damn thing at certain times. It is so packed in that you can't. I was like, I remember that was the thing I remember when I first saw the movie. I'm like, wow, that if that's rush hour on the tube, there doesn't seem like that many people as you would think. In
that
Chicago,
must have been 11 o'clock in the morning.
That's a Chicago. Yeah. But the London tube, no way. I remember that one time trying to catch a train and thinking, if I collapsed on this escalator right now, the crush of bodies would still just carry me along. I could pretty much body surf on the heads of all the people making their way down to the train. So that was something. That was something. All right.
I can believe
so
it.
We only briefly touched on the ADELE song. Where does it rank in the Daniel Craig themes?
Number 1. It's easy.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
It's not even a contest.
Dave?
I think it's probably number 2 right after You Know My Name. I really like that one. I like that it's the really hard-edged, driving theme. I love Chris Cornell, so I'm a little biased. But Skyfall is a really close number 2. Very close. And then my only complaint about, and I'm not a big fan of Another Way to Die, the Quantum of Solace theme, but it seems like the latter 3 themes to the Craig movies, stylistically, they're very similar, and they're kind of these big sweeping ballads. There's not a ton of variation among them, and I like them all individually. I even like the one from Spectre. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think the biggest issue with the Spectre theme is that it's Sam Smith singing, and a lot of people don't like Sam Smith. He's got that very grating falsetto that in like the chorus. I think if you give that theme to a diva type like Lady Gaga or Beyonce, or if it had Adele come back to do another one, people would love that theme because it has all the elements of a classic Bond theme. But they're stylistically, those latter 3 themes are very, very similar. I think Bob disagrees with me about the Spectre theme song. I don't like people hate it. I mean, it sounds like a classic Bond theme. It's just, Sam Smith. I'm not a huge Sam Smith fan, but I feel like if that was sung by like a female vocalist, I don't think people would have a problem with it.
Carly Simon, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe less of a problem. I don't know. It doesn't have enough punch. I think I don't know. It's kind of weak. It doesn't hit like Skyfall does. I do think No Time to Die are very similar, but Skyfall to me it's like, no, that's where you want to hit in terms of some powerful notes, some good kind of messy vibe. That's what I want. You don't want kind of this kind of weak, kind of little. It's like I just feel like every Bond team should kind of make its own. You Know My Name makes a statement. Even Nobody Does It Better, which is more of like a love. That makes a statement. Like they all are the good ones. They really stay with you. And those last 2 to me, I'm just I don't even remember how they go.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm with Dave. Like You Know My Name is, for me, I've got it flipped. I've got Skyfall 1A and You Know My Name 1B. I was okay with Billie Eilish's. But you're right. Like it feels like Adele is the $10 version, and Billie Eilish is like the $275 rack. And Sam Smith is the buy one get one free bin by the checkout next to the single shot bottles of Fireball. It's and then Another Way to Die. It worked perfectly for Quantum of Solace because what a damn train wreck that was. But no, Skyfall worked perfectly for the movie because Adele's voice is just so big and she nails it. And for me, it reminded me of when Brosnan took over and Tina Turner came with Goldeneye. And it was, to your point about the songs being a statement, Goldeneye, the song, I remember seeing it like the weekend that it opened, and it putting everybody back in the seat like, damn, like that's a Bond song. We're watching a damn Bond movie. Let's go. And Skyfall did that for me too. It was a big voice, just a gorgeous performance. And with the visual that went with it, it just opened a really strong movie in an aesthetically phenomenal way. So it's my one. I've got it in my, like I said, I've got it in my top 3 overall.
And I think with this being the 50th anniversary movie, they kind of wanted a classic sounding Bond theme, like a song that could have fit with like a 60s or a 70s Bond movie. Like you could hear in your head like Shirley Bassey, from Goldfinger, Moonraker, Diamonds Are Forever singing this one. So Adele I think it was a perfect song to commemorate such a big anniversary, such a significant anniversary type Bond film. And she was the perfect artist to perform that song.
When is the Bond 60th anniversary supposed to
Next
be?
year.
Next year.
Yeah. So they blew it by not having a movie come out on the 60th anniversary and not having a movie come out in 2007. Because those would have been perfect marketing opportunity.
Wow. Okay.
Of the anniversary films, though, Spy Who Loved Me, 77, Living Daylights, 25th, 87, Die Another Day, the 40th, obviously Skyfall, and Tomorrow Never Dies was the 35th. Which of the anniversary Bond films do you feel are the best, or the best at celebrating Bond?
Good question.
Yeah.
Can you go through that list again?
Spy Who Loved Me was marketed as the 15th, but it did hit the 15th. Living Daylights, which was definitely marketed as the 25th. Tomorrow Never Dies, same thing. I don't remember them making a big deal about the 35th, but it lands there. Die Another Day, which definitely give you a big time Bond for the 40th, and then Skyfall for the 50th.
I mean, I will say, if you talk about celebrating the character, I'm gonna give it to Skyfall because it was just so well done. But I know, Madonna theme aside, Die Another Day. I mean, I love I'm gonna always have to give that one its props because it had the last scene between Bond and the Q that we all grew up with Desmond Llewellyn, and that scene is just so well done.
But that's World is not enough. Die Another Day.
For Christ's sakes.
That's the.
Sorry, you are absolutely right. Well, then guess what? Tomorrow, that Die Another Day, the Madonna theme sinks it for there.
That was the 37th anniversary film.
Notably so.
I'll give it. I'm gonna because I'm sorry, but Living Daylights. I know Dave loved it. I mean, a lot of folks really loved it, but I just I couldn't get on board with the Dalton. I'm appreciating him more now than I did then. If he had given me just one more Bond film, I think it would have been. He would have just gotten right into it. He would have found the perfect.
I'm dying.
I know, Bob. First, we're talking about theme songs. Now we're talking about Bonds. It's amazing that you keep coming back to this show.
It's all good. I'm here to defend the Dalt.
I know, but I've talked about it though. I mean, I think Timothy Dalton. I'm telling you, if I can get one more Bond film from a previous actor, I would love to see. I think Timothy Dalton is owed one more Bond film. We got to give him one more.
Yeah.
I think he would knock it. It would knock it out of the park. You take the folks who are working on the Bond films now, and you put them together with Dalton. Dalton brings you that performance. It would be, boom, knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
So.
It's really only those last 3 big anniversary ones, Bob, that you mentioned that feel like celebrations. It's not like anniversary celebrate. Die Another Day, 40th, where they cram in references from every other Bond movie up to that point.
Yeah.
Skyfall. Well, actually, no. I mean, the last two. This one, remember there were people saying, like, oh, they should delay No Time to Die to 2022. I was like, shut the hell up. No, don't do that. I want to see this movie as soon as possible. But yeah, they're like, oh, but you can have it be the 60th anniversary movie. Like, I think MGM, Amazon cares more about getting this movie out and making some money back than the nostalgic factor of having a 60th anniversary movie out. But it almost kind of, if it had come out in next year, you could kind of see that, because again, there are tons of references to previous Bond films in that one that were clearly deliberate. That it kind of feels like an anniversary film, even though it didn't come out in like a milestone year of any kind.
Got it.
Bob, you would know this too, because you're a big Doctor Who fan like me. When does the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who officially start? I know that's coming out.
November 20. So next year, the Jodie regeneration, and then the year after that will be the 60th.
The 60th, right? Because I know they're ramping up for that. Russell T Davies is going to be coming back to take over the show at that point. And so you had the creation of Bond and Doctor Who not far apart from each other.
About a year apart. Yeah. Well, filmically, a year apart.
Right. I'm surprised that IDW or somebody hasn't done a Doctor Who Bond crossover comic.
I'm sure it's just a matter of who's got the rights, who's willing to play them all. I think that's what it always comes down to.
It always comes back to rights.
Yep.
Especially with Bond.
I know, because Dynamite owns the literary rights to Bond, so they've done that, and I know IDW has the rights to Doctor Who. So I mean, they could conceivably do it, but then the licensors have to approve it too. As someone who worked on a licensed property, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Like, I had written an Army of Darkness miniseries where I snuck in Ash versus the Terminator, but it wasn't really Ash versus the Terminator, but it was a way of doing it. And then the licensor saw that in the script, said, "Can't do that." Nope. I'm like, no one would have cared. Would have been fun. Come on, have some fun here. Jeez.
And the legal called and said, "Nope."
Always the lawyers.
No crossovers. Sorry, not doing it. Although the entire theme of the miniseries was about ridiculous crossovers. All right. We're approaching the end of our second hour. Let's bring this baby home. You gentlemen have been so kind with your time. Any final thoughts that you would like to share about Skyfall, or how about this moving forward? Because I haven't seen Spectre since I saw it in the theater. So you guys have seen it a lot more than I have. What should I be preparing myself for? Bob.
Set up big time for No Time to Die. It dovetails more with that movie than Skyfall, even though you've got the same people working from Skyfall into Spectre. I think, a lot of ode to Roger Moore. There's a Roger Moore isms, I think, that creepy. Return of Spectre, obviously, to reevaluate the new Blofeld, and I think they re-hit this whole theme of technology versus the human factor. The new spy craft again, kind of gratuitously. I don't think it's needed in Spectre when it was well here in Skyfall. That was my takeaway from it. And more of the Thomas Newman score, which is good, but it's kind of rehashing Skyfall as good. As for Skyfall, yes, I have ending things I was going to bring up. Why does Bond not spring into action all those bad guys about 10 seconds earlier to save Severine? Because, I mean, seriously, he could have, and then she'd be alive, and then they're good, right? Just saying.
And he could have gone and drank the good scotch.
And he could have drank the good scotch. Small thing, but I have to wonder if Silva's guys in the subway who were dressed as cops handing him the bag with the cop uniform, and I'm thinking to myself, guys with guns, going to Skyfall and shings up all that stuff. But he recruit these two guys. Did he go on like TaskRabbit or something and say, need two guys addresses and give me a package in the subway at this time on this day? I'll be dressed as a cop too, or whatever the heck he was dressed as or whatever.
I'll be the only blonde cop in all of London.
Yes, that's it. I'll be the only blonde guy walking. You'll know it's me. I could just imagine what those guys were paid to do that. Like, oh, easiest job ever. They don't know
That's
that
definitely a Craigslist hire.
Yeah. Death and Rebirth. So, two things I noticed this time around that they were talking about the painting in the museum. It's this warship going out to pasture, right? At the end, in M's office, the new M's office, there's a painting of a Proud warship going out to sea as though it's like it's been renewed. I don't know if that was meant to be a thing, but I thought that was like a cool symmetry, like decrepit ship and good ship. I don't know. I'd like to think it was original. Also, what I like is we have this sort of death of Bond, and then we kind of bring it full circle with classic M office, the classic money penny. And just for me, I don't know about you guys, but I almost cried seeing the padded door to M's office. First time we've seen it since License to Kill, and I'm like, the padded door return. So
I just
I'd like
Daniel
to think
Craig to throw his hat and land it perfectly on the hook.
Yes.
Yeah.
If he had pulled that off, I would have wept uncontrollably. She says Moneypenny. He ultimate frisbees his hat onto the hook, and we are all good from here.
Exactly. I and to correct the pothole about what happened to the list. Ming M was saying, "Are you ready to get back to work?" Maybe that file was all. We're gonna get back and find the rest of that list. And there you go. It fixes that right there. Just saying. You don't know what's in the file. Could have been anything. That was most of, except for. I took all these notes, most of them, but there's always these little ones where I'm like, what about that? Oh, all right. So last thing is, and this is just more of a fan theory. I don't think this was intentional, but could you interpret Sky as Bond literally dying before the opening titles and the rest of the film being kind of like dream of James Bond's, I don't know, journey to the afterlife, or like Wizard of Oz. They often talk about how Dorothy could have died there in the tornado, and everything in Oz was basically like the afterlife. What do you think of that theory?
I like the theory. It's just, and I think you guys were even saying this would have been the perfect capper for the Daniel Craig Bond if they didn't decide to just keep going after that.
In a way, yeah.
Because Spectre, when you see the end of Spectre, could have ended there, but they don't. They keep going. But I like that. It's like the whole are the Adventures of Indiana Jones really what Han Solo is dreaming when he's frozen in carbonite?
Oh wow, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what did he inhale while in the carbonite that would have gotten Shia LaBeouf involved?
But that one never happened. We don't acknowledge that one.
The bit about the painting, Bob, I still haven't caught that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again because I have not seen that painting that you saw in M's office. I've never seen that. I never caught that bit with the painting, so I'm gonna have to watch it again.
Yeah, when they're standing across from each other, it's right in the center.
I never pay attention to that. I kept looking at them, thinking of something else, and that's good. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
But Bob,
I
think that's one of the things that I love so much about what Mendes did with this movie is there are so many subtle little things, whether they're tips of the cap to the 50th anniversary, like the license plate in the car and the dog and just the little tiny things that you have along the way that are teased early in the film and then they're brought home at the end. And just it felt like a fully wrapped film. And again, like I go back and I watch the film again and then I listen to Adele's song again, and the fact that it opens with "This is the end" is the first line. I just feel like this would have been with Adele singing that way. That's those lyrics. It felt like this was the perfect capper for Craig.
Very well could have been
where he goes from here without M, but then you have the back to the normal grind and the padded door and Moneypenny, and we're off to the races again. If it had ended with Moneypenny handing him the dog on the roof, and maybe some type of a funeral sequence for M, you probably could have let it go from that point.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then Spectre, yeah, I think it kind of feels very much of like the middle of a trilogy to me. It feels like you could almost have Casino Royale be like the front end of a trilogy that then rolls through Spectre and No Time to Die, and have those three kind of work independent of each other because they have kind of the organization behind it all in the backdrop, and the other two are just kind of there.
In that Skyfall is playing out this sort of washed up James Bond, this sort of he has to reprove himself Bond, when he just almost 2 movies ago was this brand new agent, this 00. I always thought it's cool. It works for Skyfall, but it's a bit of a shame we didn't couple more regular Craig movies before, in a way. Yeah. It just felt like we got there kind of fast, but forgivable. Just saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, if No Time to Die didn't end the way that it does, at the risk of not spoiling for those who haven't seen it yet, like I would almost advise that people watch Casino Royale, it kind of in that trilogy lineup. Like, you're going to have kind of a plot line that's going to carry through those 3 films, and it feels like Skyfall would have been the 4th movie in that set if No Time to Die hadn't ended the way that it did. Like, here's the old guy dusting one last rodeo off, and coming back for one more rodeo because he needed to. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, he kind of does in No Time to Die. Like, it kind of goes back to that, I'm out of the game, I'm retired. I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back. Okay, fine. I'll go kill a bunch of people for you. But my last impression of Skyfall is just it left me with a lot of the same emotions that Endgame did, that other movies that just feel like you've invested time and energy and emotion into a series of films, different actors, different roles, but this idea of kind of a larger theme, a larger scheme, and it felt like the best. Like, you watched it and you were like, damn, like that was a really good use of whatever it is, 3 hours and 24 minutes of my life. Like, that was that nailed it. And you leave like that was worthy of James Bond. And I think after Quantum, that was something that you were hoping for. Like, you walked out and you were like it reassured me, okay, Daniel Craig is legitimately James Bond. Like, I thought he was really good in Casino Royale, but Quantum, I was like, oh shit, are we going down the road again with the mediocre crap, and we're going to waste a good actor? And then you go and totally redeem yourself, as Dumb and Dumber would tell us. But no, I walked out and I was like, that was James Bond. Like, he's Bond. So that was my kind of leaving impression of Skyfall.
Do you, by the way, that the gun barrel was the end? Because I'm a believer it should have still been at the beginning.
I think if they put it in the beginning, and of course that's where the gun barrel belongs.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it throws off the very first shot where you see Bond, because that's almost like its own gun barrel, where he steps into view, aiming his gun at the camera, and you hear the fanfare of the Bond theme. It would almost kind of take away from that. So it could have easily been placed in the beginning, but then I think you'd have to change whatever the opening shot of the movie is, because then it becomes very redundant.
And I think that worked with kind of Mendes overall, kind of inverting everything. Like, you go old school, you go back to your roots. Kind of the whole thing feels like it's in reverse, and so you backpedal to that. And again, on the 50th anniversary, having that be your closing walkaway on the 50th, I thought was a nice closure moment for 50 years of Bond.
Yeah.
It's hard to counter my own thesis because I do believe the gun must be at the front, and I'm all for change whatever you got to change with that shot to put it at the front. But that's a very good point. You have me reevaluate. I got to think about this. Okay. All right.
My last question to the panel. Okay, Casino Royale or Skyfall? If that's the first Bond film you're using to introduce somebody to Bond, which one do you show them?
Casino. It's a natural
Yeah,
jumping off.
I think it's still Casino because, well, there's a bunch of reasons, but you know, the everything with Bond, with his relationship with M, you know, if you're introducing a new fan to that through this movie where, you know, she's messed everything up with the list getting lost and then she dies in his arms at the end, it doesn't have that emotional impact as if that's the first movie someone's seen.
Yeah.
So I think if you know, that's just one reason off the top of my head. Casino should be the first one.
Well, and for me, the reason I would go Casino is the opening sequence where you have that conversation back and forth with the mark of killing. You haven't killed enough. You're not a 00 yet.
Yeah.
And then you get to the, no, you're right. It's much easier the second time. Boom, music. Like that's why, like that. I feel like that opening sequence is the best opening sequence in all the Craigs because you really get the, you're not a 00 yet because you haven't. No, you're number 2 at school. You're checking that box for me. Just sit still for a moment. So that's where I'm with you guys. I would go Casino because it is the good entry level to it. And if you started someone who'd never seen a James Bond movie with Skyfall, I don't know that they'd ever want or need to watch another James Bond movie. Like I feel like that movie stands independently so well. If you watch Casino Royale, you would want to go watch more. But you watch how Skyfall ends, and you're like, closure, cool, I get it, we're good.
Yeah.
Skyfall's just funnier for me. That's all. I like the humor.
And you get more of that.
Yeah.
As Bob was saying, it goes even further into like late 60s Connery, Roger Moore territory.
So yeah, you feel a lot more Roger Moore influence on that movie. Totally.
Yeah.
You can tell Craig was more comfortable as James Bond. The third movie. Like I feel like he felt like he was still earning it in Casino. Everything about Quantum felt rushed, but I feel like he felt more comfortable in the role. And Mendes just did a great job of allowing him to personally own the role and have some of that tongue-in-cheek humor really come through. And he did a great job with it.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, we're going to bring this one to a close. Folks, thank you so much for being with us all this time, listening to our chat about Skyfall. Next week, we'll be talking about Spectre. And next week, I do believe we're going to have Dr. Mark Primiano, Doc 100 back, plus a new guest who she has not seen a whole lot of Bond films, so she's had to do some homework. We told her she had to watch a few before she could even get into Spectre, and I feel bad. All the homework we're making her do, but well, we'll see.
Start with Quantum of Solace.
Before we go, Bob, where can folks find you on the interwebs and your various podcasts?
You can check out my Starcast where I deep dive onto Deep Space Nine, Class Series, Enterprise, animated series. Oh, quite a lot. That's at Trek to Trek, which you can find on Facebook or Tumblr. And you can also check out my costume station, costumestation0.com. That's my cosplay podcast. I've got an Etsy store, robe, if you're interested in Doctor Who wear. And if you want to check out our Idiot Lantern Comedy, just go to Idiot's Lantern Comedy or hashtag Idiot's Lantern on Instagram, and you can check out some of our superhero and Doctor Who comedy sketches we've done over the last 9 years. And where does the time go? Where does all the time go? Seriously,
who knows?
It baffled me when I look back at the years on Bond movies and that it's 10 years since Skyfall.
Right.
It doesn't feel like a decade.
I did forget to mention before, Bob, that one little thing that I can kind of geek out about is the last time I went to the Chicago TARDIS, the Doctor Who convention in Chicago. I met the costume designer for the series, and he had one of Chris Eccleston's leather jackets on display.
Yeah.
He actually let me put it on. I actually got to wear one of Chris Eccleston's screen use jackets, and he goes, it fits you pretty well. I was like, oh, well,
Nice.
And then
Thank
Elliot ran as fast as he could.
I had no idea that Chris Eccleston and I had the same build. Well, then I did. I don't think I'd fit so well in the jacket now. And Tab, where can tell us where people can find you, your podcasts, and your books?
Yeah, if you're into the sports chatter, Twitter, I'm at the one Tab. Do a lot of hockey and baseball talk. I am a co-host of Line Drive Radio, which is a baseball podcast, and do a lot of work on That Hockey Show, which is a hockey podcast, and write for a number of different websites out there in the interwebs that talk about all sorts of sports, whether they be Chicago or national, or I guess international in the case of hockey. So hit me up at the one Tab on Twitter or Instagram. They're the same, though Instagram is more pictures of my kids and cigars than it is necessarily sports talk radio. But yeah, love being with you guys. Love talking Bond. Big. That's one of the few things that non-sports that I really geek out and love digging in on. So really enjoyed being with you guys.
Well, we'll have you back. The Bond talk will keep going. And Dave?
I am on Instagram at Pinto_Noir.
And of course, you can follow us on Twitch TV /Shaken Not Heard. We're on Facebook.com/Shaken Not Heard. Follow but please subscribe and like our videos on YouTube. Check us out on Instagram, where I'm going to tell you right now, check out Instagram this week, and I'm going to show you who I think was the perfect Bond as far as Ian Fleming went. You can write to us at shakennotheard@gmail.com, where you can tell us what do you think about the titles, the theme songs, and give us suggestions for future shows. We've already had folks suggesting that we need to talk about the David Niven Bond, the Casino Royale. So I think we're going to have to do it. And we will talk about the Kingsman films and jump in a few other things. Anyway, thank you, folks. Thank you, Tab. Thank you, Bob. Thanks, Dave. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Thank you so much for being with us. By all means, be good. Enjoy your week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And until next time, this has been the James Bond Fancast for your ears only. Good night, all.